Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stacy. This is going to be my August reading wrap up. I feel like I had a pretty good reading month of August and I branched out a little bit from what I normally read, and I have thoughts on the things that I read. So here I am with a video for you guys. Let's just get right into this. The first book that I read was Return to Me by Lynn Austen. This is biblical fiction, and I gave this book 5 stars. Lynn Austen is an excellent author. I really love her characters, the way that she writes people. I get very connected to her characters. This book is set during the time when King Cyrus of Persia releases the Hebrews back to the Holy Land, and they go on the journey and they start to rebuild the city of Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. So it is a very interesting time period, and I learned so much from reading this book, getting to hear about their hardships as they were trying to decide if they wanted to leave Babylon or not. And families were being split up because some wanted to stay, some wanted to leave. All of the things that they had to deal with once they got to Jerusalem, because it had been basically demolished and they had to rebuild from nothing. They were given a lot to help them, but it was still a lot of work. And so to go through that process with them was very interesting. And like I said, I love her characters. So there is some romance in this story. There is a lot of growth and development, redemption, a lot of faith. It's a beautiful story, and I think it's book 1 of 3. I can't remember the name of the series, but I definitely want to continue on with the other books, and I recommend it. The next book I read was Annabelle Lee by Mike Napa. This is listed as Christian fiction. It is. There is faith in this book. So yeah, it's listed correctly. But this was a weird one. This was a very strange book. I read it basically for the title because I am a big Edgar Allan Poe fan. And so I really felt like the story would be more something to do with Poe. And there were little elements of Poe thing, like he was mentioned in this book, but the story really was nothing like what I had expected it to be, I guess. But this is a contemporary, I guess you would call it a thriller, Christian thriller, and it has to do with a set of detectives, a pair of detectives. They are a divorced couple. Well, I guess they're not a couple anymore, but it was a couple that is divorced, and now they kind of work together. They're kind of thrown together into a situation where they have to work together, and there is a little girl who is hidden away, and they have to save her. I don't want to give a whole lot of spoilers here, but the book was very strange and it took a lot of weird turns. I would kind of compare it in a sense to the TV show Stranger Things. But a lot of things about this book were so far out there and really did not make any sense. The writing was well done, and I did like the 2 main characters, the detective characters, but the plot, I don't know what to say about the plot without giving away major spoilers, because you really don't find out what's happening until the end, and then once you find out what's happening, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I was not a fan. It was really bizarre. And I think this is a trilogy also, or I know there's multiple books to this series, and I don't think I'm going to continue on, even though I did like the main characters. I don't think I'm going to continue on because, yeah, the plot of this story was crazy. Next one I read was When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. Yeah, I gave that one 4 stars. I would have given it 5 stars except for how one of the characters made me feel. I was so angry through so much of this book, and a lot of my ratings, maybe I'm not supposed to rate this way, but a lot of my ratings are based off of how a book made me feel. And I was just I was so upset at one of the characters in this book. If you read the book, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, but this is a Christian fiction time travel book. It takes place in the 1770s America, Williamsburg, and like 1910ish, I want to say, in New York City, like the Gilded Age. So I love the timelines. I love both of those time periods. And I especially really loved the older timeline in Williamsburg because I live in Virginia and I homeschooled my kids, and we've been to Williamsburg and we've been to Jamestown and we've been to all of like the early America things, all the field trip things. And so I have a big love for that time period and that kind of stuff. So big fan of that. I was not as big a fan of the modern, I say modern, but it was like 19 something, early 1900s. I was not a big fan of that time period. I really, really hated the stuff that happened to the main character. And because I was so angry and upset through like half of the book, that's why I'm only giving it 4 stars, because some really awful things happened that just were so disturbing to me. I couldn't get over it. Again, I think this is book 1 of, is it a duology or a trilogy? Anybody who knows, let me know in the comments if there's 2 or 3. I know there's at least 2. I will read the next book. I'm looking forward to that. I loved the ending of this book. I thought like the twisty thing at the end was really super cool. So yeah, I look forward to reading book 2. Next one I read was a regular secular book. I was in the mood for thrillers for summertime, and so I read Fool Me Once by Harlan Coben. I've read a couple of his books years ago in the past, and I really like his, has a lot of really interesting twists and turns. And he also has a bunch of shows that are based off of his books on Netflix, and the shows are pretty different from his books, but I really like the shows also. And this book is one of his highest rated books. I went on Goodreads to see, you know, what's going on in the thriller world, and so that's why I chose this one. I also picked this one up because the storyline is about a military woman who, when she gets out of the military, her husband is murdered, and after he is killed, she thinks she sees him on a camera that she has in her house. And so I can't give away, you know, too much of the story because it's a thriller. So yeah, the main plot, I guess, is he alive? What's happening? Is she going crazy? It's a wild ride. It's kind of adventurous because she's off trying to figure out all kinds of things. I really liked it. I thought it was really well done. I really liked the ending of it as well. I did not guess it. So yeah, I liked it, and I will keep reading Harlan Coben as the mood strikes. All right, next one I read, I actually own a physical copy of. I bought this book years ago, like, I don't know, probably when it first came out. I did not get it from Book of the Month. I got it probably at a used bookstore. But this has been on my shelf forever. And I read a Riley Sager book, Hope Before Dark. I read that, I guess, about a year ago now, and I really did not like that book. It's very well loved. A lot of people like that book a lot, but I did not like that book. And so I was kind of on the fence of if I should keep this one or go ahead and get rid of it. But when I found out that this one is set during a summer camp, like in the woods with campers and cabins and all that stuff, I thought I had to read it because my kids actually used to go away to camp. They used to go into the mountains and be gone for like a week at camp, and I used to go with them. I used to be an adult volunteer, so I would stay in these rundown buildings and do all the camp things and eat in the, you know, cafeteria, eat all the nasty camp food and do all the activities. I was actually a tennis instructor, which I don't know how to play tennis. I'm not a tennis instructor at all, but I was like a pretend tennis instructor. So I have very good memories of summer camp. Also, this book is dual timeline. Part of it takes place like 15 years in the past and part of it is current. And I think Riley Sager did an excellent job of portraying summer camp and teenage girls and all of the craziness that goes on at camp. Somebody might read this book and think that would never happen, but I did experience some really wacky things at camp. Teenagers are wild, and the things that they get up to in the middle of the night when they think all the adults are sleeping, I'm just saying. Anyway, I really enjoyed this. I did not guess the ending. I really liked the main character. I thought she was fantastic. I love the setting. This was a really good book. And now I'm wondering, maybe I should give Riley Sager another try. Maybe he has another book out there that I would really like, because this one I was a fan of. Next one I read, where I'm going back to ebooks on my Kindle, was Edge of Dusk by Colleen Coble. This is book 1 of a new series. I forget what the name of the series is, but it takes place like within a world of one of her former series, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong. This one takes place in the Upper Peninsula of Minnesota. I think that's correct. In like heavily wooded lakey area. Lake Superior is in this. So again, I really love the setting of this book. And this is a Christian romantic suspense book. It has to do with some craziness going on in the woods, some campers being attacked, and the main character owns a marina, I want to say, and her sister was kidnapped when she was little, and she was with her sister when she was kidnapped, so she has a lot of trauma from that. There is a second chance romance storyline in this, and I'm not the biggest fan of second chance romance, but that being said, I liked this romance. I thought it was pretty well done. I really liked the main characters. It was exciting. I was on the edge of my seat wanting to know what was happening. Again, it was a perfect book to read in the summer. It felt very summery because of the woods, and they go swimming in the lake. So yeah, I am currently reading book 2 in this series because I like book 1 so much, so I am a fan. And the next book that I read, again, was kind of weird for me. I just kind of picked it up on a whim. I was away on vacation, and it was one of those books that came up as available on my library, and it just sounded really good, so I got it. And that is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. And I've never read anything by her before. And apparently, I'm finding this out now. I didn't know it to begin with. Apparently, her books all have like a paranormal aspect to them. So if you're not interested in that, I would steer clear of Simone St. James. But if you remove the paranormal stuff from this book was really good. I really liked it. I just kind of glossed over those bits because I personally don't care a whole lot about them now. I used to really like that kind of stuff, but now I'm just kind of like, that's silliness, and I just kind of didn't think too much about it. But the rest of the story was really good. The setting of this was so perfect. It was set in like some obscure podunk town in New York at this motel, and part of it is set in the 80s and part of it is set currently. But I am a sucker for all things 80s because I grew up in the 80s, so I relate to all that kind of stuff, and the way this was written was done so well. I really did feel like we were in the 80s when those parts were taking place. But it is about a girl who leaves home. I want to say she's between 18 and 20, I can't remember, but a young girl leaves home. She originally wanted to go to New York City to become an actress, but she ends up kind of getting stuck in this small town in New York, and she ends up working at this hotel during the night shift when like no one is there. She basically just has to sit at the front desk and, you know, give people keys if they show up. But during that time, she goes missing. And in the future timeline, her niece is desperate to find out what happened to her aunt, because it seems like she just kind of, you know, disappeared and no one ever talks about her, and she really wants to solve this mystery. So she ends up going to that same town and working at that motel and trying to work the mystery. I loved both characters, both main characters. I was completely sucked into both timelines, both stories. I had to know what was going on. And as someone who grew up in the 80s, I was obsessed. I had like an unhealthy obsession with unsolved mysteries. I loved that show, and the way this book was laid out, it really felt like an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. The atmosphere was great. The characters were great. There was some language in this book because this is not a Christian book. There was some language in this book, but again, I just kind of glossed over that. I didn't think it was that crazy, like way too much. So yeah, I glossed over some bits, but all the mystery aspect of this book was amazing, and the characters and the setting, I really liked it. So I might pick up another book by her. If any of you guys have read any of her books and there's one that you like, let me know. If there's any you think I should like steer clear from, because I'm kind of on the fence with her. I'm not really sure what she writes because this is the only book that I've read of hers. So yeah, anyway, that is all the books that I read in August. I hope you guys had an excellent month and you have an excellent September, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.